Have you heard about Anchor? Well, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Not only is it 100% free, but it has a variety of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or a computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to other sites such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many others for you. And Anchor even allows you to make money from your podcast without a required minimum listenership. So whether you've been in the podcasting game for a long time or you're completely new to it, Anchor is so user-friendly that it's basically your one-stop shop for making a podcast. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You're listening to First Fossil. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first fossil. Hello and welcome to First Fossil, a show where we learn together how to take that first fossil toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and today's special guest is a friend of mine, and she's an awesome cellist, by the way. She can rock it. And we actually met through real estate, I guess, through like my brother and things like that. But her life's kind of taken a little flippity flop, switchity swap. So I'm actually really excited for her to kind of unpack that and kind of show that, it's okay to make these kind of changes in life. So without further ado, please welcome my friend, Amelia Davidson. How you doing, girl?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, girl. How have you been? I mean, we're in I don't know if I should call it the end of the pandemic, but we're in a very different space of the pandemic from when we last talked. So how has the pandemic been for you?
It was fantastic.
It was fantastic.
I know, and I feel like a bad person when I say it.
I know, it's like it was fantastic. Yeah, I'm still like guilty about it, but it's okay.
Well, just that I had a lot. I'd already planned for 2020 to be very perspective and of processing, and I kind of had I'd set aside that year to deal with stuff from the getting divorced. I don't know that I actually took this part.
Yeah.
To kind of dealing with that new life element.
Yeah.
So I'd already set that time aside. So the fact that I was like, oh, I'm going to miss out on so much. Then everything shut down in 2020.
Right.
Well, didn't actually miss out on all that much.
Right.
Like everybody else was like, oh, I have to be at home. And I'm like, I get to be at home.
Yeah. I'm an introvert. So I was like, I get to be at home. Yes.
Yeah.
Please mandate me to stay in my house.
Oops, sorry, the governor said I can't come.
I was like, oh, man, darn Andy told me to stay home. Governor, man, sorry.
Exactly. So, so I feel bad when I say that because I know so many people lost so much, but it was a very quiet year. And I did things that I never would have expected. Yeah. And it just gave me the opportunity to do that. So
I like that. I think I could say the same for my 2020. It was probably one of my personal favorite years, I guess. And just, I think the time to really, it was an overwhelming reason why, but the opportunity to just kind of stop for a bit and feel everyone stopping, I think I didn't realize how much I needed to not just have that for myself, but to actually see everyone else do that. Like, because I'm going all the time and then watching everyone else go all the time. It was just nice to kind of feel like everyone was kind of put in nap time for a bit. Just like everybody just chill out,
exactly.
So that was nice. That part was nice. I know for not everyone can say that, but I appreciate that time.
Yeah.
I had to do that. I wouldn't have started my podcast without it. So there's that.
Okay.
So that was cool. But yeah, a lot of different changes, but I think I think a lot of people did have a better 2020 than they thought they would, given the pandemic. And, just getting to explore self, figure out who we are, how we operate better, how we want to live in a new normal, what that looks like, and just being willing to do that with confidence. So yeah, I think 2020 was nice to, in that regard, to provide that space for us. But now we're all trying to figure out what this new normal is, and it's definitely weird. Um, I I still feel naked without my mask on now.
Yes.
Like before it was like, oh, I have to wear a mask. And now I'm like, oh, I need a mask.
Yeah, it feels so weird to walk in and I mean, again, introvert, but I just really, I feel like we didn't talk to each other. Like we didn't feel obligated to like make eye contact, like in the grocery store and do the little like head, like, hey, what's up? Like you don't have to do that. In the grocery store, nobody looks at each other when you have masks on. But now we're all looking at each other again.
Like I literally had a panic attack this week because I saw all of my coworkers without their mask on, and I was hired during the pandemic. So I was like, oh my God, that's not what I had in my mind. That's not what you're supposed to look like. I was so like, everybody looks new to me. I still jump. I mean, I've seen them without masks for the whole week. I still jump. I'm just like, oh yeah, okay. It's not, my mind hasn't processed how people's whole faces look. I just didn't know the bottom half of our faces were so important.
I know. I would have thought the eyes were most important, but
yeah, no. Lies you tell. This bottom half says a lot about a person. Just saying. Sure. All right. So why don't you tell everyone maybe just a little bit about yourself and what your first Basso experience is? Where does that start?
So I guess about myself. I am 36 and I am basically, and I'm having a midlife crisis, really, to be honest. Everything is different. Everything is new. Yeah. Not exactly where I would have thought. I don't think anyone would think that they would be at this point in their life. But so lots of things are new and nothing is ever set in stone, which on one hand, I'm very free about everything I do. My schedule is very open. I don't really have to answer to anyone. But on the other hand, this is just where I expect to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I live in Lexington area, in Kentucky, and I have lived here since 2003 when I went to UK for music education. And I did not want to be a music teacher when I got out. That cured me of that. And so then I kind of had to figure out what I wanted to do with myself. And I ended up in 2014 deciding I was going to go into real estate. So I did. And I it took off like gangbusters. I was very busy. I had a fantastic business. But real estate can be one of those industries for everyone involved that is very demanding and emotionally draining. And I'm definitely one of those people that gives a lot, and I'm not always great with boundaries, though we're working on it. And without really, really strong boundaries, you can really struggle in that business. And even if you have boundaries, you can struggle. You can lose business because you may have, I don't work on whatever it may be for some people. Some people may not work on Sundays or, whatever their particular day of rest would be. Some people maybe have kids and don't want to be out late at night. You will miss out on business because of it. Mm. And so the industry, even though my business was going really well, and by all external standards, I really should have just been flourishing. I hit my 5th year, which is really statistically is fantastic. Most realtors wash out in the first year. Most people who get their license.
Are you serious?
Most, I think it's like a 50% washout rate or something. It's so high. And then like by 2 years, like if you meet a realtor who's been in the business longer than 2 years, they're a veteran.
What?
Yeah. It's just, it's a very hard business to run. It's a very hard business to succeed at and do on a day-to-day basis.
Wait, when you say if they last 2 years, is this whether they're like if they're working with a real estate agency or if they have their own agency, regardless?
So if they had at 2 years, at least in the state of Kentucky, they would not even be able to have their own agency. You have to have been a full-time realtor for 2 years to even qualify to take the test to own your own office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then most of them most people don't do it at all ever. But those that do, you're closer to 6, 7, 10 years in the business before they're out on their own.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that's proof right there. It's very demanding. Your time is not your own. It's obviously a commission-based industry. And you're also they say that moving is one of the most stressful things that you can do. That like top 10 most stressful things any human goes through.
Mm-hmm.
Moving is right up there. So imagine if you're a full-time realtor and you're selling 36 homes a year, you're basically moving 36 times. Really, because you carry all that stress of your clients and all the the things that could go wrong and logistics, and you really are. So it can take a toll.
Mm.
And I basically worked myself to the point of where I didn't not work. I didn't take a vacation, and by vacation I mean like a day off of any kind for 5 years. Yeah. My phone rang so much that my dog actually developed like a Pavlovian response to my text messages.
Stop.
So my phone is always on silent now because if she hears my text message go off, she starts to get anxious and panicky.
Yeah. Y'all, that's a whole sign. Can we just pause right there? I'm telling you, if your whole dog has to have whole panic attacks because you're getting too many text messages, you should probably you need to re-strategize your whole life at that.
Exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, I just really wasn't paying attention to all of that. And it actually started to take a physical toll on me. I reached a mental toll, which kind of manifested in depression, a lot of anxiety, depression. Real estate is also one of the highest suicide rates for our profession because of depression, because you're constantly on call for however many clients you have. So it can be very tough. You're also dealing with a lot of times people aren't selling homes in great situations. Right. And so you carry that stress of those people. And I think that's a sign of a really good realtor, someone who can empathize. There we go. Empathize well with their clients and build the structure they need in the times of their life where structure doesn't exist. That is a very good realtor, but that can take an emotional toll on you. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. And so my mental health affected my physical health, and I reached a point where I was struggling to walk. Like my muscles were so tight that I couldn't just get out of the bed and walk a couple steps. I couldn't ride in a car. It was just it. And once I started seeing medical professionals and, and kind of working things backwards through it all, and it kind of boiled all down to this high level of anxiety and on the go-ness that I always felt. And the struggle I faced was that I knew it wasn't good for my body and my mental health. But I felt like at that point, that was the one thing in my life that I had really, like, clearly it clicked. I was good at it. It was successful. So how do you look at something that is clearly successful, but is really kind of ruining your life? What do you do? Wow. And then obviously I had, some interpersonal stuff. I felt like I really couldn't be myself in that capacity. In real estate, you sell yourself. You are the product. The house is not the product. Wow. Because the house is going to sell, right? When the consumer, you guys are out there buying, choosing which house to buy, you're really picking what realtor you're going to use and whether or not they're going to give you a great experience. That's the product you're buying. So the product that's being sold is the realtor. And I had reached a point, whether this is right or wrong, maybe this is the story I told myself in my head, but that I could not be authentically myself, exactly who I was, and still be able to be the product. And so all of those things combined, I decided at the end of 2019 that I was done. That it kind of didn't matter what was on the other end of that cliff. I had to just jump and shut everything down. So I'm a little sad about it now, but I gave up my real estate license, and I was very bitter about the industry because I felt like no one could possibly do it well. And I looked at all my colleagues and I was like, I know you all are stressed. The number one thing realtors talk about with each other is, oh my God, I'm so tired. When was your last day off? I don't know, me either, So I was looking at my colleagues and I was just like, no one's doing this well. This is terrible. And I need to get out as much as possible. So I kind of had set up my 2020 that I would walk away and figure something else out. That the job I was going to do was not going to encompass my entire life, that I would have downtime and I would have breaks and really build that work-life mental health balance that I felt like I needed. And then, the pandemic hit. And so I kind of went, 2020 was very weird. I was lucky enough that I had a bit of a savings.
Okay.
So I did not have to jump into anything. I was able to take a couple jobs that fed my soul and not necessarily my bank account.
Okay.
I got to work with animals, which is wonderful. And I think that's really where I found two things. I found one, that whatever job I was going to do for the foreseeable future needed to be something where I felt like I was doing good, that I was still making something better for people. Mm-hmm. Really what I was doing in real estate anyway. And then the second thing I needed to find was something that I could build. I'm a builder. I've built my business. I'm a problem solver, thinker, but I had to go and find that space. And so by jumping and walking away from real estate and doing jobs I never would have thought I would have in 2020, I kind of realized those two things. Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, that was great. That was real. I mean,
yeah.
Man, okay, so you went from graduating with a major you knew you didn't really want to utilize, and then jumping into real estate. You're in it longer than most. Yeah. You become completely burnt out, and you take that step to leave, regardless of whether you had another job lined up or whatever. You're just like, I just need to get out so I can breathe. And then I can look, now that I have oxygen in my body, and so that's actually really interesting how you took this jump as such. It was like a climactic part of your career, right? And then everything shut down right after you've jumped.
Yeah.
So it's like it provided an additional layer of, I would assume, of just kind of rest and rejuvenation that you probably none of us did, but like you definitely weren't thinking you would have even more of that time,
Yeah, I really expected, I expected a lot more travel in 2020.
Oh yeah, facts. Yeah.
So that kind of ruined those plans. Yeah. And I did go through, especially like March, April, when things really started to lock down. Mm-hmm. I really went through like, oh my gosh, I just walked away from a career. I have no job. I have no idea what I'm going to do. And now everything is shutting down. We have no idea what's going on in the world.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was a little nerve wracking. But I was like, I'm in a better place than I was. And that's all, yeah, that's all you can hope for.
Yeah. So, but now you're an operations manager for a real estate team.
Yes. So it's a fantastic story and I love the story. So yeah. Okay. So the first thing I need to tell you is that my very good friend, Maggie, she and I had worked together previously in real estate and we clicked. And she's one of the most upstanding, like ethical people that you will ever meet. Like sometimes I'm just like, I can't believe that you got into this business, but she did because she loves people and she wants to help them. But she has a fantastic kind of personal philosophy. She is very intentional with her meditation and her mindfulness. And that is probably the number one thing I felt like I was missing when I was selling real estate was mindfulness. Yeah. Was going through things with an intentional purpose and setting boundaries for yourself with your work, with your family. And clients need that too, because sometimes, if there's no boundaries in a real estate transaction and the buyer can just spiral because they're so nervous. But if you don't set those firm boundaries of like, we're going to talk at this time and this is how it's going to go, it's a lot like children. It just helps all of us feel a little bit more secure in what's happening.
Yeah.
So Maggie had developed while I was gone, she had developed this entire method and kind of business model and principles. And she had been kind of working it, but she's needed some help and she tried, I think, a couple people and it just wasn't quite clicking for her. And going into 2021, I was like, oh gosh, I need a job now. So unfortunately, I went back to Amazon because I was like, it's a bandit, whatever. It's not a great job. It's miserable. And I had actually spiked a fever and so they wouldn't let me on property. I did not have COVID. Thank goodness. But they wouldn't let me on the property because you had to like have a fever and then have a certain number of tests and but they'd let you come back.
Right.
And so I'd been on Facebook that morning and I saw a little ad for like that Maggie had put up, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And I was like, oh, I'll read the job description. Oh, that's interesting. Man, I mean, if I was going to go back, this is the only way I could do it. Like I told myself that. And it's like 5:00 in the morning. And so I'm walking up to my building. It's supposed to be the day I was going back to Amazon after my fever window had stopped. And my little ID badge didn't work to get in the building. It was just a fluke. They just hadn't turned it back on. Sorry. She's very old and she hears things. Yeah. Okay. So my ID badge didn't work, but it was just a fluke. It wasn't like nothing bad. But I just stood there and I tried it a couple more times and I thought, I can do this. And this is not feeding those two things. I'm not building something. I'm not helping anyone. Like all I'm doing is just standing there and cashing a paycheck.
Right.
Or I could just call Maggie and see what she needs. And I turned around and just walked out and called, like, as I was walking out, I had her on the phone. I was like, are you still looking? And she was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I was like, send me it. By 11:00 that morning, I had completed her, she has this great, it's really good. It's probably one of the best application packets I've ever seen. Like you had a couple like little tests to take and then writing letters and like you had to do a video. Which is very old.
Oh, bless her heart.
Sorry about that. We edit her out.
We will. It's okay.
14 is rough. So I had to make a video of myself, kind of talking about my ambitions and my thoughts. Yeah, it was weird, and I've never done that for a job.
Yeah. That's cool.
You've applied to lots of jobs, right?
Yeah. I've never had to do a video. That's really nice.
Yeah, and so I didn't have to do like a resume. Like I could just talk and be very natural. Yeah, and I mean, she knew me, so that was a little different. But by like 3:00 that I had it all turned into her by 11. By 3:00 that afternoon, we had our interview, and the next day she had an offer letter for me. So within like basically 48 hours, I had a whole new job, and I started the next Monday. And I walked in, and it's kind of I know how much stress does that give you?
What?
And I was like, why am I walking back into real estate? Oh my God, I'm nuts.
Right.
Because I like of all this, like, but when I sat down, when we talked about it, I was like, here are my non-negotiables, like things I can't, like, I have to have time off. I have to have, my phone can't ring it in the middle of the night. I need office hours. These are the things that I need to function best for me while still meeting clients' needs. And when she literally looked at me and she was like, yes, you can have all of that. And she insists on all of it. But she also takes that. She takes that time for herself. Yeah. And she was like, that's just kind of a non-negotiable within the culture of this. And I was like, oh, you mean we have self-care is literally a core value. So I was like, well, maybe. And then my first week there, I'll be honest, I fell in love a little bit with her systems. And I literally get to build a process from the ground up of taking someone from, hi, nice to meet you, I'd like to buy a house, to closing day. And to build the system and build exactly what it's going to look like and systematize it for each person, and be able to, so they know exactly what to expect, when to expect it, to eliminate the concern and stress that they feel that then they reflect back to the realtor. So I'm going to build things. I'm going to help people. I had no idea how operationsy, I don't know if that's a word, that I really was, but I'm not the salesperson. That's just not me, but I am the dream it and I'll build it. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we found. I feel like in that first month of working together was Maggie would go and dream up these things. Be like, what if we, and then I'd be like, I got you. And then I'd go like build it and make it happen and then bring it back to her and be like, okay, run it. So it has become a very good dynamic. She's forcing me to take a vacation. Like, yes. I mean, I don't know what to do with myself. So if you have any suggestions.
The struggle.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had told several people this, but she is the only person I would ever go back into real estate business with, mostly because she has a very different outlook than I would say the industry as a whole.
Wow.
And I hope that she is going to change everybody's views on self-care in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, imagine had you stuck it out as a realtor and even during 2020, the market has been absolutely nuts during 2020 for anyone that was looking for a house. And it's so high, like it's ridiculous. But I feel like I wonder had she had put out the ad and you were still a realtor, if you would have made the switch so easily?
No, she would not have hired me. That was a condition when she was hiring, was that because some people will take a job like this as a kind of stepping stone to get into real estate. And she really needed someone who already knew the ins and outs of the industry, and could build the things she needed, and wasn't going to run off and go sell their own houses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So me not being there, not like taking that break, knowing exactly what I need and how I need it to look. It also gave her the time to go and build. I mean, she spent all 2020 working on this whole process and core values and mentality that she runs with. Like if I had kept selling and, seeing her all the time in the real estate environment.
Yeah, that would have been weird.
It would not have connected. It would never have happened.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, if I had kept going with real estate, I could not honestly tell you I would be sitting right here. I can honestly say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
it's really good that you decided to break free from that. I think a lot of us have been trained or raised to think that, as long as it's paying the bills, just go and do it. And it doesn't matter how it makes you feel. Like your feelings shouldn't be involved in your work. You're supposed to provide for yourself and your family or whatever, and just contribute to society, whatever. But I don't know, you see so many people who have done that and they don't necessarily feel like they lived a fulfilled life. I just don't know if the cost benefit ratio is balanced in that type of living. So
I mean, it's not. Yeah. And the idea of just doing enough to get by is, and I think that's where you get like that whole hustle culture that comes in. I don't know if you know much about hustle culture.
Oh yeah.
Real estate is it's rife with it. The realtor is the original hustler, to be honest with you. But it's just that constantly go. It doesn't matter. They talk about you haven't earned a day off. Well, you don't earn days off.
Wow.
You have a human right to have rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a mentality that can really, and I think that is now pervasive in all of our workspaces. And the idea, we all feel like we have to have a secondary hustle, right? Everybody's got a gig or whatever. And I think a lot of us forget that you have to have time for rest, and you don't earn it. It's just, you get to eat. You don't earn your food and you don't earn your rest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, I think that's something I learned as a student, that especially now that I'm finished with school, that idea that I have to have every single minute of my day filled with something active, it just burns me out.
Yes. And it's really difficult in school.
Yes.
You can easily get sucked into that.
I
should be doing this. I should be doing that.
Yep. Yep. And, people ask you to do things. Oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And it's like, oh, you'd be perfect for this one. And you want to say yes to everything because it's opportunities. And then it's like, no, I can't. I actually physically can't. And I think a lot of it also is that idea that you're going to disappoint someone if you don't say yes, or if you don't answer that text message right when they texted you, or you pick up that phone when they call you. But wouldn't it be more disappointing if I went into a depression or committed suicide because I had to do that 24/7? Like,
right. Yes, it would be way more disappointing.
Hello. So it's just something I really commend you for doing that, because I think it takes a lot of courage to leave knowing that you don't necessarily have something lined up afterwards, but knowing that it's the best thing for you to reset yourself so you can be your healthiest self for wherever life next takes you.
Yeah.
Because what would it have done for you if you had just transitioned out of something super stressful into probably something else that was also stressful? I mean, it just been more of the same thing, and you wouldn't have had time to really stop and breathe and process and reassess and say, what are my values now at, 34, 35, 36 that are different from what I was doing in my 20s with this? Like, something has to change, and my body's telling me it has to change. My mind is telling me it has to change. So let me figure that out so I can walk into the next stage of life and think with a clear head and with a light heart and be happier in the spaces that I'm in, have more joy doing things, whether it's the same pay that I had before, whether it's more, whether it's less. Like, I just want to make sure I have peace and joy and rest in my life going forward.
Yes. Looking for the balance, the magic balance.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people, like when I decided to walk away, I got a lot of, what are you doing? Oh my God, this is crazy. I got a lot of that. And I think, it was meant in kindness, I think. I hope. But a lot of it was, you're so good at this. What are you doing? And I really felt like I was like, no, I'm going to get off that treadmill. I'm going to take a different path. I'm going to do something completely different. But a little bit of it that I kind of, I guess, I wouldn't say struggled with, but I had to sit with for a while last year was I felt like I have all these skills, not only skills that I cultivated while being a selling realtor, but they're just kind of innate skills that I have. I was just born this kind of organizer, type A kind of person. And I was like, I have these skills and I'm not using them. And I was trying to like wrap my brain around how I could kind of shoehorn myself into another job. And I really wasn't finding anything else that really spoke to me. And now this year, getting to do this job and sitting, I kind of had this moment maybe like a month ago. And I was like, all those skills I was born with and all the ones that I built, I wasn't finding a place for them out there in a different industry because that's not where I'm supposed to be. I really am supposed to be here. I'm just on a different path within it. And I don't know that I could see that last year. I don't know that I could see that there were multiple paths and that my skills could be used in different ways. I thought there was only one, because that's the only one thing that you're presented with.
Right.
And that is the stretch of the last 5 years of my life, is that the one path that is laid in front of you by everyone else is not always your path, and it is not always the right answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I remember in pharmacy school, the first week or so of pharmacy school, they have you do like a pharmacy aptitude test kind of thing. And like, what industry within pharmacy does your personality and thought process best fit? And they kind of rank it from 1 to 5 or something like that.
Gotcha.
And before they show us the results, they were like, so who here plans on working at like a Walmart or a Walgreens? And of course, like almost everyone raised their hand, right? And the teachers were like, so who is planning on being a like a oncology pharmacist? And we were like, what? Huh? And they're like, yeah, you could do that. Who plans on being a owner of a hospital? And we were like, aren't we a pharmacy? Like, we were so confused. And they're like, most students don't realize that you don't just go to pharmacy school and you go straight to, a chain pharmacy or something like that, or a mom and pop shop. But there's so many different avenues of pharmacy. You could do research, and you could do drug design, and you can do, you could be a drug rep. I was like, wait, what? So then, had I not known that, I wouldn't have even thought to look at other things. I wouldn't have known that all those other things were an option.
Yeah.
And I think even, whether it's like your college degree or your job, and you're going like, I hate this. Like, I absolutely hate it. And you want to just throw the whole thing in the trash without exploring if maybe this section, maybe this isn't a one-stop shop. Maybe there's other angles that better suit me and I can still be in this industry without feeling like the whole thing is a waste. Maybe I just need to find where my space within it works best for me and better suits the industry because I've found that space that works for me. So I can be my healthiest self in that space.
Yep, exactly.
You don't hear this often. This is a very interesting first Basso experience to be like, I hate this. I'm never going back. And being like, operations manager? Okay, we'll try this one.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And it, it gives me the ability to still do all the things that I've always wanted to do. I'd also, being the introvert, I don't have to be the face of the business.
Yes.
And I can, if I'm not worried about that, I can be excellent in where I am. Yeah. Instead of trying to, shove myself into that spot where I wasn't excellent.
Right.
So yeah, so I get to be the voice behind the phone, behind the emails. And that seems to suit me just a little bit better.
I love this. So
and I can be,
no, go ahead.
Oh, I can be myself, and I don't feel like that any of that is an element that is ever questioned.
That's really nice. I really like that. I think more people need to feel like they can step into their job or their career and be themselves, because that actually shapes the company when we're able to be ourselves versus these robot versions of whatever we think we're expected to be. And it really doesn't give what we're pouring into the color that it needs, because we feel a little gray. So, if I don't know, if you were to speak to someone who maybe was really at that kind of breaking point of, I kind of just want to throw this whole situation in the trash. I don't ever want to turn back to this. This whole thing is horrible. And they might have other avenues to look at. Like, what would you tell someone in that space, whether it was the breaking point or after they've already taken that leap to say, I'm done?
That's a really good question. There's that saying that you can't, what is it? You can't get healthy in the space that made you sick. So to expect to stay in a space that, whatever that space is, whether it's, family or work, whatever it is, even mental, to stay there and then try to fix it is not going, you're not going to fix anything. You're going to be fighting an uphill battle. I'm always an avid fan of remove yourself from the situation that is not serving you first. And I mean, if it's a job and that means you have to work at McDonald's for a couple months, you get a lot of peace of mind when you clock out from McDonald's. Like, I mean, I went to Amazon, like, you clock out, you go home, there's no thoughts. Like, you can work on you. The money's still coming in, you can work on you. Right. If it's interpersonal, yeah, you might have to sleep on someone's couch, but there's nothing, you're not sleeping next to the person you're trying to figure out things with, whatever that may look like for you. You can't stay in that space. Not to say you can't go back once you've sorted, but you're not gonna be able to see it clearly if you stay there.
Yeah, that's really important. And like you said, if you were to leave, breathe, reconstruct yourself, regroup and say, okay, I'm in a healthier space mentally, emotionally to handle this. I think I actually might want to go back. That's okay to do that.
It is. And you come back with fresh eyes and you come back with, I think, a little wiser. I mean, you're probably not at this point in your life, your age where you say this, but at 36, I kind of am. There's times that I'm looking back going, wait, I wish that I had done that differently. I wish I'd made that other choice differently. And the one thing that I get to do now in this is I get to live a lot of those same things over again. I mean, I know the errors that I made in that career that I would have changed, or not errors, but things I would have changed to give me a better outcome or a different outcome. I know it again. I'm getting to redo it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that step away and then come back, you get to do it all the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's very cathartic in a way, to kind of write the things that you wish you had done right the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do have a question for you. So because I feel like in an interview setting, or, someone, you're trying to get hired by somebody, and they've made an offer for you to take the job, you'd come up with these things that you knew you needed. You're like, I need that time off. I need time for me. I need actual office hours. I need, I have these boundaries.
Yeah.
How would you advise someone who is trying to market themselves as being, I'm a hard worker. I will get the job done. Trust me in this. Like, you can trust me with with this position. However, I have these boundaries. How do you actually go about saying that without sounding like you're like some high maintenance worker who they're just going to have trouble with and they don't want to deal with that? Like, how would you share that with someone that you want to work with?
So it's actually not how I would present it to someone, but rather what I would ask from them. So if you are interviewing for a job that you think I might get an offer, or I'm really interested in this job, you need to see in writing a very detailed job description. Maybe even a work week schedule for, like, an ideal work week schedule made out by your direct supervisor or whoever that would be. If there's someone else already in that position, maybe what does their ideal week look like? And you want to ask them to give that to you. And this is not you're not getting that crap they put on Indeed. Let's just be honest. That is form written. It is not real. It is not real. I am talking a real, like, expectations. Like, I want to see teamwork. I want to see how I'm being measured. I want to see, in that expectations, I want to see what is my communication style that you're looking for. And that will start to tell you. It'll tell you two things. One, if they can give it to you, you'll know if it's a match for what you want. And two, if they don't have it, they have no idea what they're doing, and they aren't going to respect your boundaries because they haven't set the boundaries of themselves.
Mm.
When you're little, when you're a kid, your mom and dad give you a set of expectations of how you're going to behave. And you behave that way. And the understanding is that you will behave that way because that's a boundary, right? That your family has, you can't go past the second street light when you're playing in the front yard or whatever it is, and that's the boundary that you can go to. And the expectation your parents have is you're going to follow our rules, and that's the rule, and that's what it's going to be. But if your parents don't give you those, and you have no idea if you can go or come, and you go to the third light, and then your mom comes back, she's like losing it because you're at the third light and you don't know. Nobody ever told you. Mm-hmm. And what happens is mom didn't know that she didn't want you to go past the second light because she never sat down and outlaid her expectations of you. And so she's irrationally upset because you didn't read her mind. And you're upset because you didn't have any idea what was expected of you. And then that breaks down the trust in that kind of relationship. And it happens in families, and it happens in relationships, and it happens in bosses and, companies and employees. So you want to make sure that the people you're working for have thought out the boundaries that they have for you and the expectations they have. And that's going to tell you that they're a good person to work for, because they're going to lay it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't match yours, you could ask, if you're like, hey, I see you have in here that you expect everyone to work 60 hours and your salaried and expectation is 60 hours. And maybe you're not comfortable with that. Is it negotiable? Get it in writing, obviously. But then you can move forward from there. But more than likely, it's not negotiable, and you just know that's not the company culture for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
That's so don't accept good. One page. Don't accept one page. It's going to be a detailed job description. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good advice, because you're right. I never thought of it, but you're right. Like when you go on something like Indeed or Glassdoor, you don't, I mean, it's very vague. It's very copy paste, if you will. Let me say it like that. It's very copy paste, general overview, 5 million feet view. And then you get into it and you're like, that's not what okay. That was left out somewhere.
Yes, so. Exactly. Sometimes you even realize that in the interview, you're like, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if anybody's a HR person or a hiring manager, write better Indeed ads.
Yes, please. We out here trying to get real jobs that have real value. Yeah. Okay. So
and they want real employees and not to waste their time.
Exactly. And I think that would benefit not just the person you're trying to hire, but the company. Mm-hmm. Like, give the details, so then you're actually hiring people that know for sure that this is what's expected of them, and they're signing up to do just that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be upset that someone's not doing that if you didn't tell them. Ta-da! Look how it works. Look at how this works. Duh. Like,
honestly, that's the hardest part about being human, is we expect everyone to always read our minds.
Yes.
And we don't set those expectations outright, and then we get frustrated with the other human that doesn't respond the way we needed them to. It's like 90% of interpersonal issues.
So sad. And COVID has not helped with that, let me tell you. So we're just getting more and more awkward out in these streets, guys. It's a problem, but yeah. we're going to figure it out. I swear.
We're all going to get our interpersonal skills back, I promise.
Yes. Yeah, it might be the end of this year, 2022, but we'll figure it out. We gonna get it together. We gonna get it together. Amelia, this was great. Thank you so much for unpacking that. That was actually very insightful. And it's because it's such an unconventional story. I think it's also really relatable to let people know that they can return to something that they may not have liked, just looking at it from a different angle or taking time to step back and breathe and try again. So if someone wanted to reach out to you and ask you questions more about going about that process, how could they reach you?
The best way to reach me, the most email I check most often, is support at maggieleewells.com. But I'm also on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, reach out to her if you're in that kind of space where you're trying to figure out, do I need to leave this job that's really taking me down mentally and emotionally and physically? Or now that I'm out, what do I do? How do I regroup? How do I look for something that's fitting the things that I am learning about myself and what I know I need? I think she'd be a really great resource, especially since she's very brand new into it. And so it's like fresh on her mind. So definitely reach out to her and ask her the questions that you have regarding your situation. She's pretty cool. So I think you'd enjoy talking to her anyway. So thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. If you guys have any more questions, any topics that you want to listen to in the future, if you know anybody who you think would be perfect for me to talk to, let me know. Send me a DM, reach me at First Basso on pretty much all socials. And you can also text me at 859-800-3396 and I will respond. I love reading messages from you guys. And you guys also know that I'm rebranding. I'm going through that process with my growing team. So things are kind of slowing down on some of my socials, on my website, things like that, just because we're brainstorming to come up with a new vision and let you guys really know the primary focus of this, I guess, my content creation that I'm trying to do. So keep looking out for that. But you guys continue to please stay safe and, wear your mask, don't wear your mask, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Just be considerate of other people and their space. And if you get vaccinated, look into some of the incentives that your states are doing. I think a lot of states are trying to help with that. And I really appreciate the governors that are trying to be creative to help with us reaching herd immunity. So I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for doing what you can to help in this pandemic and continue to think about people like in India, in Ecuador. There's a lot of hot spots around the world that are still really struggling with death rates and not being able to control the virus very well. So please keep those people in your thoughts and prayers and see what you can do to reach out and help people in those countries, whether it's with supplies or fundraising, whatever it is. See how you can help out. And even if it just means letting people be aware that this is still happening in different parts of the world, that'll be a great help to them as well. So thank you guys so much. And Amelia, we will talk soon. All right, girl?
Yes.
Let's get coffee soon. Let's
Okay.
do that. All right. I'll talk to you soon, girl. Bye.